Night City, the home of capitalism run amok, where megacorps have infiltrated every aspect of civil society. Government has been supplanted, violence and murder are a daily occurrence, inequality is omnipresent, advertisements are in your bedroom, and life is difficult and painful for the majority of people. Almost 7 million residents crammed into about 100 square kilometers, eking out an existence as best they can while their corporate overlords sip champagne from on high. And it's the best case scenario for them. Hello and welcome to Duke Revolution. I am your host, Duke. This video is sponsored by nobody, because I'm a tiny player in the YouTube world and I'm just doing this for fun. Like or subscribe if you want, I don't care. The world of Cyberpunk 2077 is similar to our world, given certain improbable but semi-plausible historical changes and fantastical advances in technology. There are already several videos that explore the lore of Cyberpunk 2077, and so I won't rehash it all here. Check out OpenVision's video for a clear and concise summary, with way better production value than mine. But to summarize the events that led to the rise of the megacorporations.
American government agencies use designer plagues to take out drug crops. It causes South American governments to fail and drug lords to get salty. In 1993, Colombian drug lords attacked New York City with a tactical nuke, killing 15,000 and fundamentally shaking the confidence Americans had in their government. Between 1994 and 1996, total economic collapse and a resultant rise in violent crime and chronic homelessness leads to the collapse of the United States. This is exacerbated by the internal assassination of the U.S. President and Vice President. A massive earthquake decimates Los Angeles. A terrible drought and runaway designer plagues in both the Midwest and Europe destroy large numbers of crops and livestock. Mass famine results. The U.S. botches another series of wars in South America. Demand shoots up for cyberware to rebuild the shattered bodies of veterans abandoned by their government. So you have a perfect storm brewing. You have loss of trust in an increasingly ineffective federal government, one with a history of team killing its own leaders, seemingly endless wars, both national and corporate in origin, plagues, widespread famine, terrorist attacks, like Johnny Silverhand. Veterans coming home from a war that nobody wanted, their bodies shattered in combat. No FEMA for earthquakes or violent storms. The internet breaks completely in the early 2020s, and valuable knowledge is lost forever. With the exception of the corporate wars, which it can be argued were waged because of a lack of resources brought on by government action, none of these things were the fault of megacorps, at least not directly. People began to recognize that they were on their own.
So why would anyone want to live in Night City? Everything we see in the game and tabletop source material shows it to be a violent place where dreams go to die, and if you don't claw your way to the top, you'll be left to die in the alley. This is where the history and lore come into play. It's fairly easy to understand why citizens of Night City are a bit callous to the value of human life. When the recent history of your country has been immersed in violent incident after violent incident with nobody coming to help you, you just get kinda numb to it. The popularity of brain dances further destroys the forging of bonds with one's fellow man. Megacorporate leaders would not be immune to this, despite their lofty dwellings, so their cartoonishly ruthless nature can be explained. That's why professional dialogue with colleagues is frequently littered with vague threats that would never fly in our world. Companies like Arasaka and Militech seem like fascist overlords compared to our world, and you'd probably be right. To be perfectly clear, I'm not saying that Night City is an ideal place to live by the standards of our world. It would definitely be a sharp decline in quality of life for most of us. But, compared to the rest of the country in the setting, Night City has much more stability, and stability is exactly what the average person needs after the last 8 decades of complete chaos. A friend of mine summed this up rather succinctly. He said, civilization for the population at the expense of the population. Love them or hate them, and I suspect it will be the latter, this stability is put in place and held together by the megacorporations. So they provide stability. But what about quality of life? Let's talk about that. A citizen in Night City has ready access to food. Sure, it's largely synthetic and insect-based, because all the actual crops and livestock have died out due to plagues, brought by the US government largely. Bugs are sustainable and affordable. Cows are not. You think nomads hanging out in the desert can get a bug pizza whenever they want? A citizen in Night City has access to some of the best medical technology in human history. The tabletop sourcebook says that cyberware is accessible to the majority of citizens, and that it's treated as a major purchase within the boundaries of a middle-class lifestyle, like buying a car, for instance. Nomads cannot say the same. Even if they have the eddies, the access to safe equipment is limited for nomads, and the regulation is prohibitive in other areas of the country. Night City has it available. A citizen in Night City has access to relatively cheap housing, especially considering how densely populated the place is. Cyberpunk Red has a unit at 1,100 eddies per month. considering a burrito is 5 eddies in the game, and a decent economy car is $43,000, probably more if not sold by a fixer since it's likely stolen. That's really a bargain for a major metropolitan area with about 60,000 people per square kilometer. You hear stories about San Francisco, where it's in our world, where it's like $5,000 a month. 1,100 eddies per month, by comparison to this, is pocket change. It's not the greatest living conditions, of course, but you do get a roof over your head, and it's relatively safe inside. They have those sliding metal doors that are hard to get into. But at risk of lapsing into refrain, nomads cannot say the same. A citizen in Night City has easy access to transportation. Rapid transit is free, or nearly so, and urban freeways connect the various zones around the city. It's easy to get around. A citizen in Night City has more opportunity. Megacorporations are evil and conniving, absolutely, but it's implied that most people that work for them can at least make a decent living. Their lives are consumed by work, yes. They face ruthless competition and inhuman working conditions, absolutely. Obviously, this compares very poorly to our world, but you have to compare apples to apples. That's how Megacorps can get away with only giving 6 days of vacation time per year for Biotechnica, or an 80-hour minimum work week at Nightcorp. People are desperate and will take what they can get because the Megacorps offer options they find superior to what else is out there. Don't like the Megacorps? You can work in a cafe. It pays poorly, but it's an option. The working conditions are likely better, and still people fight tooth and nail to get a corporate position for some reason. We also see in the game, the PC and console game, we see a number of small shops and small entrepreneurs around the city. Nomads really can't say the same, as there's just not enough population to specialize in the same way. And now look, I'm not picking on nomads. Nomads are great. They're very strong people, but I'm just saying that compared to Night City, they don't have access to a lot of things, and a lot of the country is in the same boat as they are. A citizen in Night City has better protection under the Megacorps. I don't want to overstate this. Night City is dangerous. Absolutely. It makes Mega City 1 from Judge Dredd look like paradise. But if you work at, say, Arasaka, there's an entire battalion of pseudo-samurai cyborgs on duty in your building to protect you during your 16 or 17 hour day plotting against your supervisor. Smaller businesses don't have that option. Whether or not this is a good trade-off, I leave to the viewer as their next homework assignment. And related, Netwatch. They protect the net from rogue AIs. Yes, Netwatch is a threat to privacy in a way that makes Facebook look like a bunch of amateurs, but without the protection they provide to the net, there'd be no working technology left. Once artificially intelligent entities can freely wreak havoc on all advanced networks that remain. And although Netwatch originally started as a treaty organization between the US and Europe, it is supported and sponsored by Megacorps. So what's my point? Do I even have one? Am I just simping for megacorporations? I guess I could sum it up like this. If you live in the cyberpunk world, you're gonna struggle. Struggling in Night City is superior to struggling elsewhere in the new United States once the novelty of peace wears off and the reality of survivalism sets in. The citizens of Night City enjoy a far higher quality of life, stability, and protection than anywhere else in the country because of megacorporations. The megacorps are horrific employers and have terrible public relations, because they don't need to care. But they bring a semblance of stability to Night City that is lacking in the rest of the country by comparison. Even accounting for the fact that megacorporations routinely use bribery, blackmail, espionage, extortion, kidnapping, and assassination to accomplish their goals, it's not much different than any other ruling power in the region or on the planet, for that matter. And it still doesn't erase the fact that there are still major benefits to living under a megacorporation that you may not even get at all living under a government. Is life in Night City an ideal scenario? No. Is it beneficial to the people of Night City? Unlikely. Is it superior to other conditions in the region? Absolutely. Thank you very much. I don't care if you like or subscribe. I just wanted to make this. Goodbye.